everybody. So today is about the global commons. So I think we probably ought to start off by saying what on earth is a global common? Well, they're things that we're all supposed to share, ladies and gents, okay? The high seas or international waters, the bits of the water that do not belong to any particular country, and that is very much what we're going to focus on for this module. But we all share the atmosphere, we all share outer space, and we all share Antarctica. We're not going to talk about those today, but just for your information, they are the other global commons. And what we're going to have to talk about, unfortunately, in this is called the tragedy of the commons. Because humans, as you may unfortunately know from your own personal experience, are not often brilliant at sharing. Some people are, but the human race generally is not the best at sharing. But, quick reminder, the dark blue is the high seas or international waters. It goes beyond the exclusive economic zone of the country that borders that area, and we are supposed to all share the high seas. Okay, so that's what we're going to focus on. So overexploitation, or the tragedy of the commons, is our focus for this. I'm afraid it is a bit depressing. It's not a very uplifting video, this one. We are overusing the global commons. We are overusing the high seas because we're not very good at sharing. So I've got a couple of ways of trying to get the tragedy of the commons across to you. First of all, we've got some text. Individual users, according to their own self-interest, behave contrary to the common good of all users by spoiling the shared resource, i.e. people are greedy, they take too much and they don't leave enough for other people. That's that. But you might be better with a diagram, and actually the phrase tragedy of the commons comes from farmers trying to share fields for their animals. And what happened, so you started off with this common ground that could be used by any farmer that wanted to. And of course what happened, because humans are greedy and not great at sharing, is each farmer thought, brilliant, I could put loads of cows on here. And then all of the farmers put too many cows on the land, and it got overgrazed and it all went wrong. So that is where the actual idea of this comes from. But a less dramatic, but more kind of, might have more relation to your own life example. In our house, the tragedy of the commons could sort of be explained. It doesn't work perfectly as an analogy, but sort of be explained with a Terry's chocolate orange. My son, who adores these, if he was sharing this equally between the members of our family, there is absolutely no way that we would all get the same number of pieces, because he can't resist a chocolate orange, and I reckon he'd at least probably try and nick half of it. Humans tend to be greedy, and they tend to take things at the expense of other people. And there might be an example like that for your own family that just never quite gets shared properly, shall we say. In the context of the high seas, we're mainly talking about overfishing. We're talking about the fact that countries are taking too many fish out of the sea. We are causing major problems, and we need to sort them out. Because as that cartoon gets across to you, if we don't sort it out, we won't have fish in the sea, and then we will be in a bit of a pickle. Okay. As per usual, the basics, causes, impacts, responses, our usual set of headings for taking notes apply once again. Now, if I teach you, I will show you this
is go
in class. If I don't, then what you're looking for is a TED Ed channel. Will the ocean ever run out of fish? It's a really, well, I was going to say it's really nice. It's a really good, slightly depressing introduction to what we're going to be talking about today. Okay. Now, basics. Kind of could go under causes, but I'd put it under basics. Today, this is the most up-to-date figure I could get. People on average eat 19.2 kilograms of fish a year. That's gone up dramatically, and we'll talk about why when we get to causes. And the amount of fish we're catching globally has gone up significantly as well. We are just catching too many fish. You may be aware of a Netflix documentary called Seaspiracy that has come out recently. Actually, not that recently, but anyway, Seaspiracy on Netflix. And if you have access to Netflix, it would basically be getting across all of the key ideas of what I'm going to try and get across, probably in a much more professional and better way, to be honest with you. So there's a graph of what I was just showing you. Please don't worry about the difference between a demersal and a pelagic fish, because I haven't got the foggiest idea. We are geographers, we are not biologists, it doesn't matter. It's just to prove that we are significantly catching more fish than we used to. Why then? Now each of these is going to take us a little while to get through, and I'm not going to go through in huge amounts of detail, it's just a little introduction. Firstly, we've got loads more people on planet Earth than we used to have. More people equals more fish needed to feed us. That's pretty straightforward. We now have got almost too good at catching fish, and we use a technique called trawling. So people can use a single fishing rod and catch a fish. It's not usually very efficient. It often takes hours and hours to catch a fish. It's not going to feed the world. So we have developed these trawl nets. And these trawl nets scoop up everything in their path, really, and cause all sorts of problems that we'll talk about in a minute. It's a very efficient way of catching fish. It's a very destructive way of catching fish, and something that we really need to be looking at, essentially, as a planet. Economies of scale. Our fishing boats... Oh, sorry, I thought this was coming up later. Okay, so within the trawl nets, you catch some things that you didn't mean to catch accidentally. It's called bycatch. Now, I naively used to think that you would just be able to pull it out of the water and chuck it back in the water and it would be okay. But the process of getting the trawl net onto the boat, separating what you want from what you don't want, takes such a long time that apparently most of the things will die anyway. Okay, so if you catch something in your net that you didn't want to catch, it probably is going to die anyway, which is pretty awful, isn't it? And you can see every year fishing bycatch kills 250,000 or more turtles, 100 million or more sharks. It's just, oh. And also the trawling nets can destroy the seabed because they kind of bump along the bottom sometimes. They don't always do this. You can see they basically create these underwater deserts. Okay. So techniques are just too efficient. We're just too good, really, at catching fish these days. Economies of scale links the margiris and fish aggregation devices. Fish are very curious creatures, and if you put something that just bobs around in the sea, maybe with a bit of food in it as well, they will go and have a look. And guess what, ladies and gents? That means that you can just go and put your net in around this area and scoop up loads of fish. And now, because our shipping vessels are so enormous, you can catch vast quantities. It's fine. And the most famous fishing vessel for doing this is called the margiris. And it's just enormous. It's a converted oil tanker. It's absolutely huge. 250 tons of fish a day. If you Google the margiris, you will find loads of information. None of it particularly positive, I'm afraid to say. But one particular website that I have geekily started quite enjoying having a look at. So this is marinetraffic.com, and you can find out where the margiris is in the world. So let us zoom out a little bit. That's interesting. So it's currently in the Pacific. It looks very much like it is heading towards the Panama Canal. Look, we know from modern shipping that the Panama Canal is your sort of, sorry, wrong way, gateway from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and it means you don't have to go around here, and that's where the Margaret is right now, so you can see what it's been up to. Yeah, marinetraffic.com. I ridiculously find it quite addictive, but I'll come off there. So the Margaret is massive, and to be honest with you, bullet points 2 and 3 kind of go together. We've got massive shipping boats. We're really good at catching fish. We're too good at it now, almost. Pets. Now, I'm not going to make you feel guilty for having a pet. I have a dog. This is, it's okay. But what we have to acknowledge is that a lot of fish does end up in pet food. So the more pets that we own, the more the demand for fish will rise as well. So that's a bit of a problem. Health. Fish is low fat. It's seen as quite an essential part of a healthy lifestyle, and you will find lots of magazines and websites and things who are like, yeah, eat more fish, eat more fish. So not only are there more people, but there is more encouragement of us to eat more fish as well. Now, the employment one is a bit confusing. Pay subsidies. What is a subsidy? It's a lump of money from the government that is given to people or industries. So if you have an industry that the government wants to support, but it doesn't really make any money anymore, they will give you some money to help you to kind of keep that job going. And they do that with fishing in the UK. We know, possibly, if you've learned from changing places, but if you haven't done that module yet, you don't know. When people lose their jobs, you get a process called the spiral of decline. And the spiral of decline is bad in every single possible way. It causes mental health problems, it causes physical health problems, it can cause crime to go up, it can cause lots of people to end up on benefits. It is a terrible process. If you can keep people in fishing, you are not going to have that process. So actually, we are paying people to catch fish, even though we're catching too many fish. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it? But anyway, for loads of different reasons, we are taking too many fish out of the sea. And that's causing loads and loads of problems. Essentially, the first 4 make the same point in slightly different ways. There aren't many fish left, there's been a decline in species, it affects reproduction, because if you're taking the adult fish out, you're going to affect the sustainability of those species. We're destroying the seabeds. Weirdly, eventually, if we do manage to overfish, we are going to lose all those jobs, because you can't really work in the fishing industry if there are no fish left to catch, can you? So ultimately, the job losses will happen if we carry on down this route. And you could also argue that it might be causing piracy. There is an argument that in West Africa, which is the current hotspot of piracy globally, that it actually started as fishermen protecting their fishing grounds from foreign trawlers who were bigger and breaking the rules and doing all sorts of naughty things. And this article is really good. It's a 12-minute video. It's fantastic, actually. So it's on the BBC News channel. Is China's fishing fleet taking all of West Africa's fish? And it really explains it. And you think, crikey, yeah, actually, maybe piracy is linked with overfishing. So it begins to allow you to link different parts of the module together. Nothing good, I'm afraid. Nothing good at all. Now, this is the real focus, and this is the bit we are mostly going to do in class if I teach you, but I will say enough for those of you who are using this as a revision tool to kind of jog your memory. Responses, what are we doing about it? Usually in geography, we talk about the problem, we talk about the impacts of that problem, and then we finish with what the hell are we doing to try and fix it? And we're going to go through these. You will find that there's some help in your global governance module booklet as well, but I'm going to go through each of these in a little bit of detail. Seasons. This was something that we tried, but it doesn't work, okay? So you can kind of write this one off. The first thing that they tried is to only let fishermen catch fish at certain times of the year, but inevitably what happened is that they just tried to catch the same amount of fish in a shorter amount of time. So it didn't actually help with the overexploitation thing at all. So we kind of gave up on those quite quickly. A quota is where you have an allowance. It's like you are allowed to catch 1 million tonnes of fish this year, England. Spain, you are allowed to catch 2 million tonnes of fish. So each country or each place has a certain amount of fish that they are allowed to catch. So it's a lovely idea, quotas, and in the EU, which I appreciate we're no longer in, but it's the most kind of relevant, we have something called a total allowable catch, how much fish you're allowed to catch. But as far as I can tell, countries don't pay any attention to it whatsoever. So how much in excess of what they were supposed to catch is ridiculous. Look, none of the countries apparently seem to be paying any attention to a quota. So it's a lovely idea, but Sweden caught 52% more fish than they should have done. Like, yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. It's a lovely idea that seems to not work at all. A fish farm, now these are very much on the increase, and if you study environmental science, I know that you have to know a lot more about them than we do in geography. But essentially, you keep fish in sort of certain conditions. This is a salmon farm off the coast of Scotland. So the salmon live in the sea, but they're kind of within a net, essentially. And we are experiencing a real increase in the amount of fish farms being created. They're not perfect. They come with their own set of problems, which, as I say, environmental science students know lots more about than we do, but they're definitely on the increase. So for us, the three that we need to know the most about in geography are no catch zones, marine protected areas, and individual choices. So a no catch zone is pretty obvious. It's an area of the sea where you are not allowed any human disturbance. No fishing, no dredging, nothing. Brilliant. They are amazing. They work fabulously. And your case study of that, which I will just briefly go into here, but we'll do more in class, is Lundy Island, which is in the Bristol Channel. It's a tiny little island, but it has one of the first no catch zones in the UK, partly because of the grey seals and the lobsters that are there. There's also some crabs. So as you can see, this red area is a no catch zone, and it works brilliantly. And when we're in class, we will do some research into this, but you can just even see from this hyperlink, lobsters bounce back, fishing levels, old fishing line, maybe that one doesn't, but essentially, ladies and gents, what happens is, in a no catch zone, the species begin to recover, and then they start moving out of the no catch zone. So there's this really weird situation where in the waters around a no catch zone, there are more fish to catch. So if we could get the world to create more of these, that could work fabulously. But persuading people to do it is really quite tricky. But yeah, they definitely have a potential. It's just getting the political will to create them that's the hard bit. Marine protected areas or marine conservation zones, we are not going to get bogged down in the difference between them, is where an area of the sea is protected, but the rules are different depending on the precise area. Okay, so this is the Marine Conservation Society, and this is all about marine protected areas. And there are currently 371 marine protected areas covering 38% of UK seas, and you can, let's have a look at saving seagrass in Plymouth. And so the rules are different depending on which bit of sea. So here they're clearly very much protecting the seagrass in Plymouth. So they're replacing traditional mooring systems, they're replanting it. But it would be done on an individual case basis, all right, of what needs doing in that particular place. And yeah, you can obviously have a navigate round. It's just the mcsuk.org. So the Marine Conservation Society UK.org. And then, if my slide will move on, individual choices. Now, Seaspiracy has cast some doubt, I have to admit, on the validity of this logo. Up until Seaspiracy, I thought if I bought fish with this logo, I was doing a good thing. I'm doing some research basically to try and figure out what's the best way forward. But the best thing we can probably all do is just to make individual choices about our the things that we buy. I'll talk to you in class about dolphin-friendly tuna, which is all a bit silly, really. Essentially, in a nutshell, dolphin-friendly means absolutely nothing. Ideally, you want your tuna to be pole and line caught, or if not, definitely you want it to be fish aggregation device free. Dolphin-friendly is a nonsense. I'll talk to you more about that in class. So Lundy Island will become a case study that we will do properly in class. The Great Barrier Reef is also a case study, but you could leave that until the coasts module if you wish. And then to finish, there are some fantastic documentaries. Not that one. That was meant to be a link to Seaspiracy, but you might have to find a different link. Sorry. Seaspiracy is brilliant, but it is, oh my gosh, it's depressing. It is available on Netflix. It was briefly on YouTube, but as you've just seen, clearly it's not there now. This one is a little bit more amateur, but it does cover everything that you need for the module. It's called Troubled Waters. It's 47 minutes, so it won't sort of take too much of your life. And then this one is a little bit kind of more uplifting. It's a bit less depressing. So the future of seafood on Changing Seas TV is that one. But this was meant to be Seaspiracy, but clearly no longer on YouTube, or temporarily not on YouTube anyway. Right, well done everyone.